What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Patrick here, and in this video what we're going to do is continue with the concept of scarcity. And notice that on the board here I have written out where we left off in the previous video. And in the previous video talked about how consumers, producers face scarcity. I had a bunch of stuff written out for the producer side as well. But in this video, in the next couple of videos, probably going to split this up into multiple videos. I feel like it's going to be, there's going to be a lot going on. What we're going to be covering is this concept of a budget line, which is basically a visual way to show how consumers face trade-offs and the opportunity costs of the decisions that they're going to make to consume certain products and not consume others. And more specifically, a budget line, the definition of it is a visual representation of the combinations of two goods and services that can be consumed with limited income. And what's interesting about this definition is the fact that they mention two goods or services. Because in reality, what's going to happen is, let's say a consumer has $100. There's a bunch of different things they can do with this $100 in the real world. Pretty much an infinite amount of decisions or things they can buy. But let's say for simplicity that they only have four choices. Let's say they could buy shoes. Let's say they could buy shirts. Let's say they can buy pants. And let's add a fourth here. Let's say accessories. Right, so these are the four different things that they could buy. Well, before we mentioned for other examples that you can only pick one of these, but with this $100, what you can do is you can actually pick combinations. And that's why there's this two over here. So with a budget line, just in general, there are two steps. Now, in budget line questions that you're going to receive and the one we're going to do an example in a little bit. Usually, more likely than not, is you're going to be given the two goods or services that are going to go on the budget line. So you won't have to worry about picking two from a big list. But thought I would mention how, just briefly, how budget lines are sort of derived from their most raw form is you take your limited income, a consumer's limited income, and you pick the two goods or services with the highest utility. Remember, consumers value goods or services with the utility that they receive from them. So let's say that in this example, the two goods and services with the highest utility are going to be shoes and shirts. So that is the first step. We pick those two goods and services. And then what we do is we pick the combination of both choices from step one that have the highest utility or with highest utility. Okay, and as I mentioned, questions that you run into with a budget line, usually you're not going to have to do this step one, right? They're going to give you those two goods and services and you're just going to have to make a budget line, which I'm going to show you how to do shortly, but thought I would mention that this is basically how a budget line comes about, because with that limited income, there's still going to be an almost infinite amount of possibilities that consumers can do, or how they choose to use that limited income. And this can actually get pretty complex because sometimes just looking at certain things separately, like shoes and shirts, might have the highest utility when you look at them separately, but maybe a combination of, let's say, shoes and pants, a certain combination of both of those, maybe spending $60 on shoes $40 on pants, that combination is going to have the highest utility of anything else, of anything separately and any other combination. All right, so this step here can get pretty complex with budget lines. So let's show how budget lines work through an example. So let's say that you received a $60 gift card to the movies, and then at the movies you could purchase two products. So you can either purchase a movie ticket that costs $15 each, or you could purchase a meal, and each meal costs $5. So when you receive a situation like this, what you first want to do before making a budget line is you actually want to make a table. It's called a possibilities table. So what I'm going to do is create some headings here, some columns. So we got possibility, we got number of movie tickets. I'm just going to call it tickets. And then we have number of meals. Right? So you'd have a column for possibility, and then you would have two columns for the two goods that you are working with. So let's start off with possibility A. And usually what you want to do is you want to pick one of the goods and you want to put a quantity of 0 for them. So let's pick the meals in this case. Let's pick a quantity of 0. So let's pretend we're not buying any meals. That full $60 is going to be spent on movie tickets. So how many movie tickets can we buy with $60? Well, we would take $60 divided by 15, right? How much each ticket costs, and we would get 4. So if we buy 0 meals, we can buy 4 movie tickets. That is one combination. That is one possibility. Let's go to possibility B. What if we buy 3 movie tickets? Then how many meals can we buy? Well, if we buy 3 movie tickets, notice that 3 times 15 would give us 45. So we've spent $45 out of the 60 on tickets. So how much money is left over to spend on meals? Well, $15, right? But each meal costs $5, so how many meals can we buy? We can buy 3 meals. So another combination is we can buy 3 movie tickets and 3 meals. And then we would have possibility C. So we got $60 here. And what you do is you just keep going down in quantity in this column, and then this column is going to keep going up in quantity. So here we would have 2 movie tickets. So if we purchase 2 movie tickets, $15 each, we're going to spend $30. How much money left over are we going to have for meals? $30. And so how many meals are we going to be able to buy? 30 divided by 5, which gives us 6. Okay, so we could purchase 2 movie tickets and then 6 meals. That's another possibility. And then you just keep going. And what it's going to be is the differences here are going to be constant. So the next possibility would be 1 movie ticket and 9 meals. Notice how these are going up by 3. And then you could check it. So 1 movie ticket is going to cost what? $15. So how much money are you going to be left with for meals? 45 divided by 5 to get the number of meals, you would get 9. And then the last possibility, you always want to show the combination where you have a quantity of 0 for each of the goods. Those are actually going to be the endpoints for the budget line, as you'll see on the graph. So notice that we showed 0 meals and then 4 tickets. Well, you also want to show the combination where you have 0 tickets and then how many meals can you buy? Well, then that full $60 is going to be spent on meals. Each meal is $5, so you'd end up getting 12. You'd be able to purchase 12 meals if you buy 0 movie tickets. Okay, so these are the different combinations here, the different possibilities. And now what you want to do is you want to show them on a graph. And the way the graph is going to look is you're going to have 2 axes here. And what you want to do in this axis, let's put the number of tickets. And then over here, let's put the number of meals. We could have put the number of meals here, the number of tickets here as well. It doesn't matter which axis you use for which product, but I'm going to go about it like this here. So notice that the number of tickets, they're going from 0 to 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the meals are going from 0 to 12, and they're going up by 3. So we'll go 3, 6, 9, 12, like that. So we got 3, 6, 9, 12. This is 0, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Okay, and then all you have to do is just plot these points here. So 4 tickets, 0 meals. So 0 meals, 4 tickets. That would be here. This would be possibility A. Then you'll have 3 meals, 3 tickets. 6 meals and 2 tickets. And this might not be necessarily to scale because I sort of hand drew this. But if you were to make this on graph paper, what you would get when you connect these dots is just a nice straight line. Right? If it was properly scaled, it will always be a line. And so this here, notice this is possibility A, this is possibility B, C, D, and E. So this here is an example of a budget line. So you'd get a scenario like this, make a table, and then just plot these points. And again, doesn't matter which axis you put which good, just pick one. But either way, there should always be a line that looks like this. Now I want to spend some time talking about some of the properties of this budget line here. Now notice that anything within the line, so this area over here, is attainable combinations. So for example, notice how we can pick 6 meals and 0 movie tickets. That's possible with the $60 that we have, because each meal costs what? $5, and if we're buying 0 movie tickets, that's $0. So that means this combination here would cost us 30, which is less than the 60. Or we can maybe do this combination here, where we buy 2 movie tickets, each costing $15, and then 3 meals, each costing $5. And so the total spending would be 45. So any combination that you pick below this line is attainable. However, you're not going to be spending that full $60. You're not going to be able to maximize the utility. So you usually want to pick a combination on this line over here. Now, any combination outside of the line is unattainable. And one of the easier ways to see that is to pick a point on the axis that's outside of the line. So notice here, let's say we tried to buy 5 movie tickets. Well, each movie ticket costs $15. We would need $75 for that, but we only have a $60 gift card. Or over here, if we tried to buy 13 meals, each meal costs $5. That would be $65. We only have a $60 gift card. You can also pick combinations. So like 9 and 2, notice how this point's going to be unattainable. 9 meals, $5 each, plus 2 tickets at $15 each. That would be, what, 30 plus 45, which is 75, which is over our budget of $60. Another thing I want to talk about is the slope of this line. Now, to do a little review from high school math, if you remember, there's different ways to find a slope. So a slope, we can do rise over run. So if we pick this point, how are we going to get to this point here? Well, notice that we have to rise -1 units because we're going down. And then how many units do we have to run? Go this way, we have to run 3 units. So that's one way to get it. Another way to get it is with the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what we would do is we would pick 2 points. So let's say we pick this point. What's the coordinate of this point? 0 and 4. Remember, the x value goes here, y value goes there. This point here would be 3 and 3. And then we could label these points x1, y1, x2, y2. Or you could do x2, y2 up here, x1, y1, doesn't matter, you're going to get the same answer. So y2 is 3 minus y1 is 4, so we'll have 3 minus 4 over x2 minus x1, 3 minus 0. Notice that we get negative 1 over 3 again. Another way to get it, when you're dealing specifically with a budget line problem in economics, is you can take the price of the item on the x-axis and divide it by the price of the item or the product on the y-axis. And then this is always going to be negative because it's always going to be a negative line. So notice how, what's the price of the item on the x-axis, the meal? Each meal costs $5. And then the item on the y-axis is the movie tickets. How much does each movie ticket cost? $15. Okay, so when you simplify negative 5 over 15, you'd end up getting negative 1 over 3. Same answers as we got over there. Okay, so different ways to get this slope. Now, if the number of meals was on the y-axis and the number of tickets was on the x-axis, the slope would be the reciprocal of this. It would be negative 3 over 1, or just negative 3. Right? And you can actually see with this formula, if we flipped these axes, then P of x would be the price of the product on the x-axis would be $15, right? Each movie ticket. And then the price of the product on the y-axis, the meal, each meal costs 5. So notice you'd end up getting negative 3 there. Okay? Again, it doesn't matter which axis you put which product. But with what we picked, this is the slope here. Now notice that with all 3 methods, the slope that we got was negative. And you can see with the graph as well, notice that this is a negatively sloped line. And there's a reason for that. A budget line is always going to have a negative slope. And the reason there's a negative slope is because the consumer faces trade-offs. Because the consumer has a limited budget, in this case the budget is $60, they face trade-offs. They have to make decisions. So that's why we had these different possibilities, these different choices, if you will. So you can actually see it through the numbers. So notice how we have a negative 1 up here and then a positive 3 down here. So what this means, notice that we can get 3 meals, positive 3 meals, but we have to sacrifice 1 movie. Right? We can get 3 meals, but we have to sacrifice 1 movie. And another way to say this is the opportunity cost of receiving 3 meals is sacrificing 1 movie. The opportunity cost of receiving 3 meals is sacrificing 1 movie. Now, you can also show this slope by switching the negative and positive. So notice we can have a positive 1 over negative 3. Both of these, it's just negative 1 over 3 still. But if we put the positive 1 up here and negative 3 up here, then notice to get 1 movie, right, positive 1, we have to sacrifice 3 meals. to receive one movie, we have to sacrifice 3 meals. And so another way to say this is the opportunity cost of making a decision to pick one movie is that we're sacrificing 3 meals. And this is going to stay constant throughout, moving from one possibility to the next. So notice here we're at 4 and 0. Well, to go from A to B, from possibility A to possibility B, notice that we would sacrifice one ticket, one movie, but we would receive 3 meals. Or to receive 3 meals, to go from 0 to 3, we have to sacrifice one movie ticket. To go from 3 to 6 to receive 3 meals, we got to sacrifice another movie ticket. Or the opposite way, to go from 1 to 2 to get a movie ticket, we have to sacrifice 3 meals. So the opportunity cost of one movie is 3 meals, or the opportunity cost of 3 meals, receiving 3 meals, is sacrificing one movie ticket. Now, another way to show this is kind of important. Notice we have -1 over 3 here, and the numerator represents movies, denominator represents meals. But sometimes they'll ask you to represent the opportunity costs in terms of one meal. Notice how we've been representing all of this in terms of 3 meals. And so to do that, what you want to do is you actually want to make a ratio. So the ratio is always going to be -1 to 3 of movies to meals, or +1 to -3, but let's just keep the negative in the numerator for now. So if you want to show it in terms of one meal, what you do is you just put a 1 over here, and then you would solve for that x. And the way you do that is you just cross multiply. So 1 times -1 gives us -1, 3 times x gives us 3x, and then to isolate for this x, you divide both sides by 3, so x equals -1 over 3. And so what this means now is in order to get one meal, you got to sacrifice 1/3 of a movie. 1/3 of a movie ticket. Or the opposite, if we switch the negative and positive, we could have +1 over 3 over -1. To get 1/3 of a movie, the opportunity cost of 1/3 of a movie ticket is sacrificing one meal. Okay, so I know in this example, 1/3 of a movie, it's kind of weird. It's not as smooth of a figure as when we have one movie and 3 meals. But you're going to be dealing with situations where this is okay. Sometimes maybe you'll have, like, let's say a quantity of rice versus quantity of corn that you can buy. And then having these fractions makes a little bit more sense in that scenario versus 1/3 of a movie. But this is pretty important to know how to do. If you end up getting a slope like this where you got one movie in terms of 3 meals, being able to switch up and find the ratio in terms of one meal. Because sometimes you'll maybe get multiple choice questions where these choices won't be there, but these choices will be. And so you'll have to know how to derive those choices. And so this could have been more complex. We could have had maybe like, let's say that for every 6 movies that we receive, maybe we have to sacrifice 5 meals, let's say. And so if you want to see so this is movies, this is meals. Let's say it was like this. That was the slope here, right? In order to get 6 movies, we got to sacrifice 5 meals. And then you want to get the opportunity cost of 1 meal, then you would solve for that x. So you do 1 times 6, negative 5 times x, which is negative 5x, divide both sides by negative 5. So you'd end up getting x equaling 6 over x equaling 6 over negative 5. Right? So this would be negative 6 over 5 up here. And so now the opportunity cost of getting one meal, positive one meal, you'd have to sacrifice negative 6 over 5 movies. Right? So these kind of slopes can get more complex, and just this is the way that you change that ratio if you want to know what it is in terms of one thing. And if you wanted to know what it is in terms of one movie, then you would just put the 1 up here and you would solve for this x here. You'd cross multiply, and then you'd end up getting negative 5 over 6. Okay, so this here would be, let me think. In order to get one movie, you have to sacrifice negative 5 over 6 meals. Right? So just get comfortable with these sort of ratios, because again, you may need to convert this kind of stuff into a more complex ratio in order to get the correct answer on a test, especially with like a multiple choice question. Another thing I want to mention is, if you remember, when we talked about the 2 steps for making a budget line, in the second step, we talked about you have to pick a combination, meaning pick one of these possibilities that's going to have the highest utility. And so we're not going to show it in this video, but in future videos, what's going to happen is there's actually going to be another column for utility here for each of these combinations. So let's say maybe we have like a utility of like 100 here. This would maybe be like 120, 130, maybe this would be like 110, maybe this would be like 90. And you would pick the combination with the highest utility, which would be this one in this case. So combination C, which is over here. That would give us the highest utility, the highest satisfaction of using that $60. And actually, there's going to be utility figures for each product separately, and then we're going to have to add them up to get a total utility of the combinations. There's going to be stuff like utility curves and indifference curves, so there's going to be visual ways to represent this utility. There's going to be the law of diminishing marginal utility. So utility can get pretty complex, but I wanted to just briefly mention that the combination that you would pick on this budget line is the one that would maximize your utility. Another way to talk about how utility is maximized is where the marginal benefits equal the marginal costs. But again, we'll cover that in a future video when we relate utility back to this budget line in a little bit more detail. This is more so to introduce how the budget line is working in terms of the possibilities without taking utility into account. And what I want to talk about to finish off this example is factors that affect the budget line. And more specifically, I want to talk about 2 factors that are going to affect the budget line. Number 1, a change in prices of the goods. So how would this budget line be affected if the ticket price, the movie ticket price, goes up, or if it goes down, or if the cost of meals goes up, or if they go down, or a combination of both? So that's one set of factors that can affect this budget line. Another factor is a change in the budget. How would that affect a budget line? So instead of having a $60 gift card, what would happen if we had a $30 gift card instead, keeping these same prices of the movie ticket and the meals? Or if we had a $120 gift card, how is that going to affect this budget line?